Hello everybody and welcome back to Vintage Thursday. So in today's video we are back onto our little TEF project. So last time we put the clutch and the flywheel back onto the engine. Engine is now finished. Today we're going to move on to a much bigger job and we're going to tackle inside of the clutch housing, the bell housing. So let's have a look, see what we're going to do. Get a torch. And we're going to make a plan as to what's going to happen. Right, so hopefully you can see in there now, we've got a little bit of light shining in. So, what we're looking at here. So we have the gearbox input shaft. So this is what the splines on the clutch engage with this. And this then provides your motion into the gearbox. This bit here is the clutch thrust bearing, release bearing. And we're going to replace that. It does sound okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't come this far into splitting the tractor and put an old bearing back in. So you change that one, much the same as the pilot bearing, which is in the flywheel, which is what runs on this little bit here. Okay, so that's going to get renewed. What we're going to do, we're going to clean everything up because as you can tell, it's very oily, which is why we were in here, because it was the rear crank seal gone. We need to investigate any wear on, this is the clutch pedal shaft and the brake pedal shaft underneath. There's bushes in here. We need to check those, change those if they need it. Once all that's out of the way, that will then allow us access in the back. If I point gently with a screwdriver, so these 4 bolts here, they need to undo. We need to take off this cast in here because in there is where the gearbox input seal is. Okay, so we're going to change that while we're in here. I don't think it's leaking. Pretty sure all this oil has come from the engine, but we're going to change it anyway. And also, while we're in here, we might as well do, just up on the top here, there's 2 core plugs, which are on the end of the gearbox gear selector shafts. And then here on the side, there's an oil seal, which does look to be leaking. And that is, you can just see what the end of the screwdriver now is touching the reverse and the start selector rod. Okay, so that comes up here. When you engage your starter on the gear stick, that pushes this rod up on the top of the housing, which then engages your starter motor. Okay, so that oil seal there does look to be leaking. That's all fairly simple to do. The sticking point could come on these 3 things up here. These are designed to be changed or knocked out from the back when the selector rails aren't in there. The unfortunate thing is those selector rails only come out of the back of the gearbox once the gearbox is split from the transmission housing. Okay, so to remove the selector rails, obviously inside here under the gear stick, you need to split it here to slide those selector rails out the back. That's a lot more work than we want to entertain today. So we're hoping somehow they're going to come out this way. Once these shafts are out of the way, we'll get a bit better access. But those core plugs don't look to be in there square. We might be quite lucky and get them out. The oil seal is going to be the tricky one. But first thing we're going to do, before we dismantle anything, we're going to check the wear in these bushes. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to grab hold, because we've stood this side. Firstly, we'll try the brake shaft. So what we're going to do, I'm going to grab hold of the brake pedal and wiggle it in and out, okay, to check for movement. And there's a little bit of side-to-side movement, but there's no movement front to back on the bushes, so that is good. Those 2 bottom bushes are sound. Clutch bushes on the top. Again, we're going to grab the pedal, we're going to wiggle it in and out. Now we're going to grab the pedal, wiggle it. You can hear the movement, and again, if we get the light in the right place, you might see it, because it is quite a bit. Okay, so new bushes required on the clutch pedal shaft, but the brake pedal shaft is okay. So I think what I'm going to do first, we're going to get some brake cleaner and get inside of there as clean as we can before we start taking things to pieces. So I'll do that and we'll come back and see how we get on, see how clean we can get it. Right, so hopefully you can see now we are nice and clean in there. Made a big difference. Got all that old oil out. What it has also revealed, as you can see, if I keep out of the light, in various places around there is a yellow substance. Okay, so you can see it round the back there on that cap. It's round where the tube goes in, that the input shaft goes through. It's also up there, and it is all around the edge. So what that is, it is a product that they applied in the factory. In the back there's a good example. Anywhere that a steel component touched an aluminium component, or a steel bolt screwed in to an aluminium component, they put that yellow stuff on to prevent galvanic corrosion. Okay, so the gearbox casing is aluminium. Anything that is steel, all bolts and those caps back there, and obviously the engine would come into here. They received a coating of that to prevent the corrosion, because people think aluminium doesn't corrode, but you put steel bolt into an aluminium casting or anything like that, and the two metals will react and cause awful problems. Now Ferguson obviously knew that, and if you see the old videos, there are videos if you look on YouTube of, you know, from when they were building these in the factory. The videos are on YouTube, and if you look at the right time, you'll see them. They've slapped this yellow stuff on, you know, like it's water. They big paintbrush and just slap it on everywhere, and it certainly stood the test of time. It was a thing worth doing. Now that yellow stuff is still available, and I have a tube here, as luck would have it. So we'll zoom in on this. If you want to get a tube of this is what it is called. If you can read that, it's not focusing. JC5A jointing compound is what it's called. If you just put JC5A jointing compound into Google, I've just done it, you can find it. But be warned, this stuff, a tube of this size, is wildly expensive. Okay, so be prepared for that. But it is worth doing. Oh, I've left my torch on. I bought this tube. This it does say it's out of date. I've had this tube almost 20 years now. I used it when I was building up this. This is a TVO T20 here that's been in Vintage Thursday HQ in bits for many years. But yeah, I use this stuff. You can see it here. I might just see it up in there. Wherever I put a steel bolt into the steering box, gearbox housing, put this stuff on it, and it's worth it. But like I say, it is expensive. Anyway, so we'll be doing that on rebuild. But anyway, I got sidetracked there, and let's get back to where we were. So all clean inside. What we're going to do, we will pull off. There's two springs here holding on the release, the bearing. We'll pull off the two springs here, holding on the release bearing. Pull that away, and then we're going to undo these two bolts, and that will hopefully then allow the clutch shaft to slide out. I'm not quite sure how we're going to film this. It might not work out very well. It's all a bit tight in there and a little bit dark, but we'll see what we can do. All right, so here it goes. See how we get on looking at what we're doing. One spring off. See, as soon as we take off the clutch, take off the spring pressure, the clutch pedal dropped, and these are what you're pushing against when you're pressing the clutch. And that will come off. So there is the bearing on the carrier. So now I've cleaned it, it doesn't actually sound that clever. So yeah, so we'll press that off, putting your bearing on there. And that has revealed this casting here with the fingers on. So what we've got to do, the split pins, not sure if they're showing, but there's split pins in the top of the for the nuts to keep them tight. Pull the split pins out, undo them, and then it will slide out. Right, so I have both nuts taken off. The bolts will now pull out. I've also taken the clutch pedal off, so the shaft should pass through, leaving this casting inside, and then we'll just pull it out. Okay, so here is our casting and our clutch pedal shaft. That will give this a proper clean up soon, but it doesn't feel worn. So hopefully the wear is just in the bushes. You might just see them up in there, like a bronzy colour. So those are what is worn. Just put our bolts back in so we don't lose anything. So because we're satisfied there's no wear in these bottom bushes, give it a good wobble, there's nothing in there, we can leave that alone. What we need to do is get a long extension on our socket, undo the 4 bolts in the back, and then this will pull away. Got to be a bit careful, there is a bearing supporting the back edge of this which could drop, so gently is the order of the day. Right, so next job we are going to reach in and undo the 4 bolts around the gearbox input shaft tube. So I can't find my long extension, so we've had to cobble together this to get enough reach to do it, and it's very tight. There we go. Right, that's got them all slackened off. Hopefully it should be an easy job now. So you can see here on the thread is the yellow liquid we were talking about earlier on. These bolts potentially never been undone in the life of the tractor. Just gently wiggle it. It's coming. There we go. Okay, so here is our shaft. Again, we can see the yellow stuff. Gasket is broken, but that's no big deal. No big deal. We're going to change the gasket anyway. So if I try and get the remainder of the gasket off, because I haven't got a gasket to go in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the thickness of the paper. We're going to buy some gasket paper and make our own, because the thickness of this gasket is critical to make sure we've got the right clearance on the bearing in here. There is the bearing race. It's a taper roller bearing, and the bearing race is integral to the inside of this input gear here. This one is actually in pretty poor shape, I have to say. It is not looking good in there. It's probably not picking it up, but there is some pitting in there. That's not what I wanted to see. Right, so we have stumbled upon a problem here. So we have, as you've just seen, we have taken out the input shaft. I did say it doesn't look very good inside the bearing race. I'm not sure if I'm going to... so I did say when we pulled it out, it doesn't look good inside the bearing race. I'm going to try and show you, but I'm not sure how we're going to get on. Anyway, so what we'll do, we will pull out. So this is the input shaft. If we pull the shaft out of the housing, down inside the tube there is the seal that we are replacing. That is why we've come this far. You can just see it in there. If I can get it in the light right. That again, like the one on. So again, like the seal on the back of the crankshaft, that one looks to be original, never been changed. So that's not a problem. We can change that. The problem arises if I find some decent light in here. Can you see that? That's water damage on the inside of the bearing race. The unfortunate thing is that's not a replaceable race inside of there. That is machined into the shaft. It's all one thing. Now this bearing here would be replaceable, but if I turn it round again, you can see those dark spots on the cage here. Again, that's water damage, or it's rust. There's no damage as far as I can tell on the rollers. So this cage is not, the rust on this cage is not important at all. As long as these rollers are smooth and not pitted, which I think they are, we're okay. But the fact that we've got water damage inside of here, you can see a particularly bad bit there, and some rust on the cage there. I'm now wondering what is happening inside the rest of the gearbox. The bearing, what they call the rear input shaft bearing. So this is the front input shaft bearing on the shaft. The rear one is the one that runs inside of here. That bearing seems okay. It turns nicely, but I don't know what damage is in the rest of the gearbox. So we've come upon a problem. Firstly, this shaft here is not available. And this race in here is not replaceable. So I'm going to have a little think about what we do there, and also what is happening in the rest of the gearbox. Is there more water damage? Is there more bearings corroded? So what we're going to do, we're going to end the video here. I'm going to have a little think about how we progress now. Do we have the gearbox out? It's not a great deal more work now we're this close. Well, I keep saying that. While we're this close, we'll do a little bit more, We can take the steering box off the top, and then we can take the gearbox out. So I've never been inside a Ferguson gearbox. It wasn't really on my list of things to do this winter, but I think we might end up going a bit farther than I was planning. Now, I have had the filler cap off, had a look inside. It's a bit, nothing looks out of place, but it is a bit dirty in there. Again, that could be the water ingress causing problems. So I think I'm going to end the video here, have a little sit down and I think for a day or two, see where we go next. So right, I will say thank you very much for watching. We're ending the video on a bit of a downer. We haven't really achieved a great deal in this video other than having a big pile of parts spread around. But yeah, leave us a comment. What do you think is the next step? Do you want to see inside of a Ferguson gearbox? And then the next question is, if we take another major assembly away from the back end, you know, we take the gearbox off, we're left with basically just the hydraulics and the back axle. There is a bit of a leak underneath the pump, and the rest of the paint on this tractor isn't the best. And the whole paint on the tractor, the bonnet's straight. There's a bonnet there. The paint isn't the best. The engine could do with the repaint. So this could end up turning into a massive project. And if you remember, all this started out, the engine out job started because I wanted to adjust the tappets in the engine. Maybe I should have left them alone. We're finding all kinds of things we weren't expecting. So yeah, leave us a comment. What do we do next? What would you do next? And yeah, right. So thank you very much for watching. Yes, we're ending on a downer. There's no two ways about it. This isn't the way I was planning on taking this video. Anyway, right. So thank you very much for watching. Leave us a comment. Do you want us to look inside a gearbox on a T20? because I think we might be heading that way. Right, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.